Okay, welcome back. Next, we have a spotlight talk from Paul Lewis, who is Chief Technology Officer at Pythian. Paul is going to discuss how AI can drive transformation and competitive advantage in the retail industry. Remember that you can get the best view by maximizing your browser window. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome to Retail AI Readiness Data Analytics and AI Strategies for Retail and CPG. I'm Paul Lewis, Chief Technology Officer of Pythian. Thanks for your time. You've heard of this thing called generative AI. My guess is you see it in the blogs, you read it in the news, you hear the good, bad, and indifferent. Let's talk a little bit about it. We are at the peak of inflated expectations. It's really only a year or 18 months old, and it's really at the top of the good news, soon to be bad news hill. You've heard some bad news in the market, but the reality is there's still a pretty steep decline here, right? We're going to hear some amazing innovations. We're going to hear some privacy issues. We're going to see some intellectual property problems. And you have to spend time learning and understanding and investing on the impact to yourself, to your family, and of course, to your business. The good news is the right-hand side, where 8 months ago, 70% of people were just reading, right? They were just understanding what the usage in their organization might be. 15% might have tried some proof of concepts. 3 or 4% implementing in production, and a few percent still not touching it because they're distracting doing other things. But recently, it's a good 40-40 split. 40% are still learning and understanding, applying the technologies, and another 40% are saying, I think I can do something. I can use the embedded functions, I can build agents and applications. And again, some are putting in production a little bit more, but relatively still under 10%. And the still 5% are distracted. Maybe they're worried about cloud migrations or modernizations, or they're thinking about ERP changes, right? They're distracting doing other things in their IT pillars. The good news is it is overwhelmingly going to create value over time. $7 trillion potential revolution of work. 40% of working hours across industries could be automated or augmented by Gen AI. This is going to have a positive value personally in your time, but also in the organization's time. You could be saving hours per day doing research, hours per day creating content, hours per day in summarizing external viewpoints. This has a tremendous value to both an individual success and the organization's success. And you can tell that by levels of importance in a CIO survey. Over time, CIOs now have an intermediate understanding of both the technology, the tools, the people, the expertise, the processes. And they think it'll have a pretty high dramatic impact on their business, even if it's only a medium or moderate priority. That means there's 5 pillars within IT. There's some security, there's some app modernization, some cloud deployment, maybe even some research, but now AI is ready for deployment to create value. It's just 3 of the 5 priorities. If you think you're a little bit late, don't worry too much. There are outliers. There are banks and telco and insurance companies that have hundreds, if not thousands, of machine learning models, but the vast majority of organizations fall in a few dozen machine learning models, right? Which is the core set of ingredients for AI. It's okay that you aren't incredibly advanced because millions of companies aren't there either. And don't think to yourself, I need to get this done in weeks or less than a month. Still, the average deployment of an AI innovation or machine learning innovation is measured in 3 to 6 months or even longer, right? I have to look at my 400 use cases and narrow it down to the 20 that might be artificial intelligence, then pick the 3 in a 2x2 matrix to say, here's the biggest bang for the buck, right? Here's what's going to create the most value. And that entire process might be 6 months. So don't worry if you're not innovating on a week-to-week basis. There are still some real concerns, though, by using AI, especially a consumer-grade AI GPT implementation. There's some intellectual property problems, where you might, let's say, produce code within your own environment and put into a consumer GPT and therefore losing the license. Or some security concerns where you're using code created by an external GPT and putting into your environment. There's some explainability problems. Machine learning is already a complex set of algorithmic models. Once you get into deep learning, when it's neural networks, it gets even more complex. And then you have an enforcer model, the LLM implementation, it's an entirely black box. There's some reliability and fairness concerns based on the data that's used and data that's trained. In fact, the first two GPT models were mostly on library-based data, right? Literature and articles in a scientific world, but they weren't very good at understanding the questions. Now that GPT is trained on the World Wide Web, the sum of human knowledge, it's much better at asking questions, but a little worse in giving you the right answer. And then there's actual impact, both social and environmental. It takes a lot of power to run these models, and therefore it's a lot of cost and a lot of data center ping and space to support that. And we need to even out over time on what the expense might be. But the biggest problem, of course, is the hallucination, right? It is prone to hallucination, somewhere in the mid-60s. Imagine if you went to your CFO and COO and chairman of the board and said, I'm going to implement an IT project that's only 65% good, right? That will be a problem. What I need to do with these models is ground them in many ways. I need to take a commercial or consumer model. I need to retrain it with the data in my organization. I might need to fine tune it based on the model that's to my industry or to my company. I need to feed the model my data dictionary so it knows what ACT means for me versus the World Wide Web. And I need to do post-processing and pre-processing, right? I need to say, is this an appropriate question to ask? And is this an appropriate answer to give? But more importantly, in an enterprise setting, the answer has to be 7. It can't be sometimes 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 8. So the appropriateness of 7 and the realistic requirement that 7 needs to be the answer, it makes this a software engineering project versus just a simple data project. In order to de-risk all those concerns, you've got to do some prerequisite work, right? I have to think about my data and governance to implement it. I have to make sure my data is easy to find, easily described. All of my knowledge bases from all of my acquisitions need to be readily available at my fingertips. That data needs to be trustworthy. I need to know who created it. I need to know that it came from a trusted source. I need to know what the lineage is over time. If I've ETL'd it from several systems and I've combined it or created a new calculation, it needs to be timely. I need to make these decisions in real time. I need to see real-time changes to social status to determine how it's impacting my actual real-time AA decision. And it needs to be protected, right? It is the core asset of the organization, and therefore I have to keep it away from the potential bad actors who are much better at what they are than they were in the past. So how retailers and CPG businesses use Gen AI tends to be in some big buckets, right? First and foremost, especially in the marketing side of those businesses, is creative assistance. You might use it for generating actual content, for campaigns or for blogs or for websites. You might use it to summarize insights from external or third-party data. You might use it to innovate on products. Maybe it's going out to the analyst research and summarizing what might be the gaps that you might be able to fulfill against your competitors. Or you might use it to generate art, concepts, and designs, or to feed research studies to look at sort of question and answer, champion challenger implementations, or to look at the regulatory boundaries and making sure you're not going outside of that. And lastly, you might use it for employee efficiency, right? It might be within the productivity tool sets to draft emails or draft IT strategies or IT pillars, or it might use it for communication and customer journeys for a variety of retail purposes. I might use it to summarize IVR, or summarize customer calls, or summarize customer emails. I'm going to use it to generate interesting content that would still take an individual time and energy to do, but I can have it automatically be created. So I'm managing the outcome, the to-do list from it, versus having to do the manual summary myself. We've worked recently with a global retailer to use generative AI tools to modernize faster. This was an organization that had 18 fulfillment centers, 38 delivery centers, and a catalog of more than 14 different million items. Over time, they've organically created large scale, complex, monolithic systems, both in the application and the data world. But they needed to be far more agile. They wanted to create new customer journeys and new pages and new AI innovations to look at product baskets differently. So they worked with Pythian to help both move to the cloud and re-architect that monolith application into microservices, both in a microservices from an application perspective and microservices in terms of database perspective. That required AI. We needed AI to evaluate data schemas and SQL code, and we needed AI to evaluate the code of the application itself to see where I needed to make changes in order to create a microservice version of it. I need to code convert from one language to another, and I need to deploy that in an automated way using code created scripting automation. That has created a tremendous amount of value for the organization. They've saved millions of dollars in the amount of manual coding effort and evaluation they've had to implement it. We've saved migration in measures of decades, and they're much faster delivering to the market. They're delivering 82% less time, new features and functions to the market. In fact, wouldn't it be great to hear a little bit more? This is directly from Wayfair, the Matt Ferrari, the head of MarTech.
Wayfair is an organization that is multiple decades old, and as we thought about cloud transformation, some of the challenges were thousands of applications that were built in a monolithic architecture, which prevented Wayfair from deploying new features to our customers and suppliers fast. In order to resolve that, we needed to build out a more aggressive approach to how do we use the public cloud natively. Some of the key drivers behind our transformation journey were really around how can we provide features faster to our customers and our suppliers. The truth is, as we think about tech transformation, it's not just about the cloud technology we want to use, it's really the outcome that we are trying to drive. And the truth is, as Wayfair thinks about things like generative AI, machine learning, and data, we really think about how can we get insights out of that data to drive better outcomes for our customers. Wayfair has been collecting customer data for multiple decades and has a science organization that focuses on data insights. What insights can we get out of the data? If you bring that back to the customer experience, think about rather than searching for your new item for your home, think about instead having more of a curated list, right? The ability to see, based off of buying history, search patterns, even the style of your home, really being able to get a curated feedback and kind of almost a near real-time conversation going with the overall Wayfair experience. And so a lot of the data, which is petabytes and petabytes of data that Wayfair has stored over the years, is now used to really drive the overall customer experience. Wayfair has thousands of SQL applications and an incredible amount of petabytes of data across the architecture. As we thought about modernization and leveraging Google Cloud, we relied on Pythian to be the experts on how to do it from an architectural perspective, and then execute with us and our data team in actually getting it done. As Wayfair adopts more public cloud and cloud native services, Wayfair needs to focus on the applications that matter to our customers and our suppliers and differentiate Wayfair, just like any other business. So as we think about partnering with Pythian, we thought, who better than the data experts from a data transformation perspective, a data protection and sovereignty perspective, a data governance perspective, and transparently, a guide. Someone who can actually show Wayfair and our current database and data architects the way on how to adopt these cloud native data toolings.
Amazing story. So how do you get started? Well, first and foremost, you got to keep reading. You're seeing all the news feeds. You got to read the blogs. You can get some certifications from any one of the big hyperscalers, of course, including Google. Go to Coursera. Get some of those real understandings of what an LLM is, what generative AI, what a prompt is, what prompt engineering. Get a real sense of how it would affect you and your world. Determine what those big 400 use cases are. Get an understanding of what's analytics or what's machine learning or what's generative AI. Define your actual policy. What GPTs can I use inside and outside of my organization? What's appropriate data to use and not use? Then learn, share, understand. What I would generally refer to as zooming out. Make it a holistic strategy within your organization. Think education, think build, and think embed. And then finally, start to deploy for readiness. Create a variety of POCs with those top 3 environments. You can think of it as implementing these quick MVPs. Determine the one you want to implement, design and build using either an embedded function or a build agent or a build application function. Create a demonstratable version using production data, and then rinse and repeat. Get all 3 of these use cases out within a quarter, and you can create real ROI and get a sense of the value. Pythian has been doing this for 26 years. Data is our core. We manage 25,000 databases and 2,000 environments for 400 customers. We really understand what that source is, and therefore we understand what it means to create value and insights from that source. We understand the data, we understand its analytics, and of course, we understand the clouds that you have to manage all of this information on. We'd love to help you out more, both the individual and me itself, or our organization would love to help you have a better understanding of generative AI, better understanding of analytics, better understanding of use cases, and help you actually deploy the first 3 to create value for you. Thank you, and back to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. If you have any questions, take them over to the Pythian booth in the exhibit hall. There you can leave your card or use the chat to message the staff. While there, explore the resources they have to offer in their booth. And you can also find a demo from Pythian available on demand in the demo theater. Coming up in just a moment is our first expert speaker of the day, Matt Florian. He is going to discuss bringing together ERP data and cloud analytics for powerful insights in retail and CPG. I'll see you there.